Hello, empowered leaders. I'm Shweta Mogha, and this is Empowered Women of the World podcast. Leaders across 35 countries listen to this podcast every week to get tips on leadership, technology, entrepreneurship, and mindfulness. Stay with me till the end of this podcast when I will share with you a tip or a resource that you could be using to be successful. Before we start today's podcast, I want to remind you about the eWOW Virtual Incubator Program for which we are accepting applications. This 4-week virtual incubation program will help you to take your startup idea to a pitch deck stage. The link will be in the show notes. And today, I'm excited to welcome Stacy on the show. Stacy works as a partner account manager for Microsoft in Worldwide Learning team. Additionally, she is an advisor for Women in Cloud and consults women entrepreneurs on go-to-market strategies and helps them discover the best funding sources for their business. Today, we will talk about raising funds for your startup and attracting venture capitalists for your venture. So let's welcome Stacy. Stacy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shweta. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Awesome. Stacy, we are so excited that you are, joining us today. And you have a very interesting career journey. You started your career very early in trading, and much later you decided to enroll into Boston University while you were pregnant with your first child. Tell us how difficult it was for you to return to work and begin your career in technology.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've certainly been blessed with a very interesting career trajectory, and it's all come full circle for me in terms of how it all relates to itself. Actually, when I started my program at Boston University, I was in the beginnings of my successful technology career and that was actually what allowed me to fund my program at Boston University. I took some time to look at different programs and considered actually leaving my job to finish my degree, but I was in such a great trajectory of success at the time that I decided actually to go to a program that was a little maybe even ahead of its time in terms of being an online program. I had done some college earlier on when I had started working and realized that I started getting jobs that were so successful without it that I didn't necessarily see the value until later when I realized that it was something that for myself I wanted to complete. And that's when I found this program with Boston University that allowed me to actually continue working and continue my career. What I didn't realize at the time was that I would also end up being, having the blessing of my first child on the way when I started the program. It wasn't planned exactly as that at the time. And so, my husband and I at the time decided that it made sense for me to continue. So I was actually working, pregnant, and doing my program at school.
Wow.
So I was definitely balancing a lot at the time. And I think as females, we do that. We're able to juggle those things. I think the hardest part for me was actually at the point, when I was really close to, I was at the end of my pregnancy, and my brain was sort of not at full capacity, and I was doing, biology. I remember that really distinctly. It was difficult, but I got through. I ended up cum laude, graduating with that, and so to this day, it's a huge, something I'm very proud of. It was a very difficult program, and I'm just, I'm happy that I was able to do that and continue on with my career.
Awesome, Stacy. And I can't imagine, working, studying, managing a child at the same point of time must be difficult. But as you said, very enriching experience that you treasure till date. So this is great for our audience to know that you have to be perseverant and you have to take your career forward and move towards a set goal. You also started your own venture, Stacy, and you were able to sell your first business successfully to a large corporation within the first year. What were some of the key elements that you would like to share with our audience that you think that venture capitalists essentially look for?
I think, some of the things that they look for, what are you bringing to the table that's unique? And how does how are you able to share your vision? I mean, being able to tell the story of what you're bringing to market and sharing your vision with passion is a huge part of that. I think also, I was partnering with someone else at the time who had a very unique background as well. And that was a big part of why we were able to sell the business. And then also, what is your differentiator? We had, it was something that it was a unique part of a business that was in actually furniture design. And so we had a very unique product that we could sell to a corporation and they could rebrand as their own. And so that was something that we just put a lot of work, and also, we worked 24/7 really during that year because it was the two of us. So there was a lot of work equity that went into that, but I think being able to share the vision of, what we were doing, we had a product that had, very high quality and design that was different. And so that's where we really were able to differentiate ourselves.
Yes, you rightly mentioned that, having that vision and also, looking at your product differentiation is extremely important, and pitching it to venture capitalists makes the difference. What were some of the challenges that you faced during that journey of, scaling up your startup? And any tips that you would like to give to our viewers, in terms of what can they expect as they start their startup journey?
I think one of the hardest things about starting a company is you can never really realize how much work is involved until you do it. So that was part of it. And I think there was definitely the part about the vision, and then the part about actually the nuts and bolts. And I think that sometimes, and when I say nuts and bolts, I'm talking about, the basics of how do you run a business from an operational point of view. I think sometimes, you can have a vision, but also you need to understand, how do you run a business? How do you do your projections? How do you do the bookkeeping and the marketing? And how do you do that when you're two people, or, however many people you have? I think that's a big key part of it, is understanding, no matter how creative your vision is, or, whatever it is that your business model is, understanding those basics will get you started. The other thing that was super important is that you don't, it's a marathon, not a race, but you also have to be consistent. And, we had to constantly, market, get our name out there, be bigger than we were. And we were able to do that, even though we were only two people. We were able to, bring the same level as we would if we were a larger corporation.
Right. And as you rightly mentioned, there are a lot of new skills that you actually need to develop and learn in the entire process, right from understanding how to create business plans, to bookkeeping, to essentially marketing. Were there any resources that you used at that point of time? And I know that you are a mentor for the eWOW virtual incubator program too. So maybe you could talk more about the program and what attracted you to become a mentor as well.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about the eWOW virtual incubator program because that's a lot of, what we're talking about is we're talking about asking people to take, their vision and help them, guide them to be able to understand what it takes to take a vision to a reality, and sort of some of the steps along the way. Because oftentimes, sometimes, great ideas don't don't get formulated into a business just because they're not understanding what are the steps I need to take. You know, what is important in running a business? How do I attract, you know, venture capital potentially down the road? What are the other sources of funding? How do I put together a business plan, and how do I polish my pitch and my story and my vision so that people will notice me and understand what I'm trying to do, and also understand the competitive marketplace, which is so important. You know, is anyone else doing what you're doing, and how am I doing it differently? And is it different enough? And how, this is another one which is really interesting because I've seen this happen over and over. How do you make money? You know, sometimes someone will have a great idea and say, that's, you know, I say, that's a great idea, but are people going to pay for that? And how are they going to pay for that? And sometimes that it hasn't been factored in, and that's super important, obviously, down the road. If you ever want to get funding in multiple different ways, you have to understand that.
Yes, and I think, Stacy, with your background and, you know, having worked with women leaders and, you know, building their go-to-market strategy, and also, you know, helping them find resources for their business, will be great for people who would join this program. And it is virtual. It is, you know, wherein you can interact with the mentors and seek constant feedback from them. So that's awesome. My last question to you, Stacy, would be, during this COVID times, how are you keeping yourself you know, going? It's crazy sometimes, you know, back-to-back meetings, etc. So how are you managing your well-being at this point of time?
That is the elephant in the room, right? The COVID-19. How are you doing? So, you know, I've worked remotely for many years, in, you know, both in an office and then remote, but there's been a remote aspect, especially, you know, having a long career in sales where a lot of what we did was, you know, potentially on the road. And so I do have those skills. I think the key is balance. You know, when you have, you know, this going on, and there's so many, you know, there's so much uncertainty, and then you have, you know, factors, and, you know, it's affecting everyone. And so it's not just your, you know, family or this is something that, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I think that's, you know, self-care is super important at this time, you know, to have that balance, find ways to, you know, even though you're in lockdown, find time to do that exercise or whatever it is that works for you, to kind of create balance when things aren't necessarily balanced, right? And, you know, if it has to be in short spurts, it has to be in short spurts, but not to forget about that, because whether we realize it or not, whether we've been hit hard or not, you know, we're all impacted by this. So it's important that we acknowledge that, and that we take the time to, you know, take care of ourselves, and also, you know, reach out to others to make sure that we're checking in on them as well, so that we can support each other.
Absolutely. You know, Stacy, at this point of time, reaching out to your friends and colleagues, you know, is equally important while you take care of your own well-being, because I think everybody is going through a very different phase at this point of time, and trying to just figure out how to keep themselves motivated and stay positive. So absolutely important. Can't say more than what you've already said about this. Thank you, Stacy. This was awesome, you know, interacting with you today, and having you as a mentor for eWOW Virtual Incubator Program, because we know we will be able to deep dive into a lot of aspects there, right from how do you identify your idea, how do you identify the core, you know, elements of your idea, and how do you then take it forward to the pitch deck stage. We look forward to having you as a mentor for our budding entrepreneurs. Thank you for your time today, Stacy.
Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and an honor to be able to participate today and to be involved in this program, because I feel it's really such an amazing program, and I think it's so important actually right now, especially with everything that's going on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stacy. And guys, today, the resource for you would be the link to the eWOW Incubator Program. The link will be in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you found valuable nuggets today in the podcast. I would love your feedback and also your thoughts, so please email us at empoweredwow@gmail.com. I look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Until then, keep empowering the world.